Welcome to Zen Rose Garden Behind the Scenes. Benefits of meditation, your brain on mediumships.
I'm Heather.
And I'm David
from zenrosegarden.com.
We're going to get brainy AF today.
For all of our Zen heads in Zen Ed Academy, it's time to tag up.
Tag up. Let us know that you are here with a hashtag ZenHead for life.
And if you're watching live, give us a hashtag live tribe.
And if you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay fam. I just wanted to go a little
I figure I could have gotten more tea. You are extra. So also, guys, let us know where you're watching from and one special thing about where you're at.
So I can be a man of the world instead of just a man in my house.
I have props. This is your brain. This is your brain on mediumship. Okay, so let's talk about your brain. Okay, so I want to give you a quote from one of my favorite books, favorite author, one of my favorite authors, Andrew Newberg, who is a neurophysicist who studies the effects of spiritual practices on the brain. And he says, spiritual practices, even when stripped of religious beliefs, enhance the neural functioning of the brain in ways that improve physical and emotional health. Intense long-term contemplation of God and other spiritual values appears to permanently change the structure of those parts of the brain that control our moods.
Wow. Wow. Told you we were going to get a little brainy today. Literally all up inside our brains. So yeah, we want to know, do you take time to engage your brain in the contemplation of the mysterious? Okay, let us know in the comments if you actually take time to engage your brain in contemplating all that weird, crazy stuff out there.
Neuroscientists have found that it does not matter if there's a religious construct that's specific. They found the same brain changes in nuns that meditate, nuns like Catholic nuns, or Buddhists, or people that practice yoga. It didn't matter what it was. If you spent a minimum of 12 minutes a day as a regular practice
in contemplation,
and even better if you add movement to it.
Yes.
Some sort of thing that involves the mind and the body in a contemplative practice of what is bigger than you. What are you connected to? And mediumship, we talk about sitting for mediumship a lot, about the meditation that mediums use to practice.
A development practice, right?
Is a development practice that mediums sit in maybe, a few times a week, every day, depending on the medium.
12 minutes a day.
Right.
Actually, would be amazing.
Actually grows your brain.
Boom.
Grows your brain.
Boom. So you will have like this huge brain, like you might have to get a new head.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So neuroscientists who study the effect of God, I'm going to put that in quotes because God means something different to everyone.
Right.
Or the contemplation of spiritual life on the brain have come to some really kind of startling, crazy conclusions, right? Different parts of the brain, they have found, perceive the idea of God in unique ways. So it doesn't matter if you're an atheist thinking about God, if you're an atheist thinking about the nature of the universe, it has the same effect on the brain.
Yes. So atheist, agnostic, religious, spiritual, it doesn't matter. What does matter is the act of contemplation itself on something bigger. Okay. That's what really matters. That's the key to growing your brain.
So spiritual practice that involves contemplation of how things work. Like when you were a kid, raise your hand if you have ever done this. Laying on the grass, staring up at the sky and the stars and wondering how it connects every day. That literally grows your brain. That contemplation. But we kind of stop doing that in our busy life, right? We just go from one thing to another. Spiritual practice that involves contemplation of how things work.
The interrelatedness of all things grows our brains and establishes new neural pathways. Okay. Often in a matter of hours, if there's a big enough trigger event that is significant enough.
Let's say something happens that is like, totally jars you, like a spiritual awakening event. That actually can create all these little dendrites to like grow in your brain in a matter of hours, neuroscientists have found, and continues to grow as you continue to contemplate. So basically you're connecting new neural pathways that actually enhance your ability to intuit and to tap into your psychic senses.
And to make your brain function faster. Just saying. Brooke says, yes, I've always been fascinated by the more in life. Absolutely.
Neuroscience research on people that actively contemplate, regardless of religion, show bigger, healthier, this is a big word coming up. Nerdy moment, anterior cingulate cortex.
Right.
Okay, so we've got the frontal part of our brain. Told you we're going to get nerdy. You've got the frontal part of your brain.
That is not round.
Okay. It's not round, but just, I don't have a brain to show you. Well, I have a brain, but I can't show it to you. So you've got your frontal lobe, okay? And so right behind that sits this part of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. And this is a part of the brain that sits right behind the frontal lobe that controls compassion, social awareness, intuition, empathy, you empaths out there, and your psychic senses.
So if you want to think about it like this, neuroscientists would consider that particular part of the brain as holding the functions of what we call the third eye.
So in our niche, we call it the third eye.
Right.
But in neuroscience, it's called the anterior cingulate cortex.
Right.
But they don't call it the third eye. But that's where those functions live.
Yep.
Okay.
So this part of the brain strikes a balance between the frontal lobe that we were just talking about that controls and manages thoughts and behaviors and direct connection with others, and the limbic system, which is all about emotions and feelings.
And here's why it's important for mediumship, okay? Because you've got this frontal lobe that is more logical and rational, okay? And you've got the limbic system, which when it's overstimulated, for you empaths out there, can be hypersensitive and hyper-aware.
Hyper-emotional, more tied into the fight or flight system.
Right. So when you work on contemplation, it actually grows that anterior cingulate cortex. I told you we're going to get a little sciencey today. It grows it, and that creates a better balance between those two parts of brain.
Right.
So that when you're developing psychic senses, you have more time to contemplate the sensations that are coming up, the psychic hits.
More time to chill out and assess without going into, oh my God, it's this crazy story.
Right. Or freaking out from some kind of fear, or injecting your own fears into the mediumship itself.
Yep.
Okay. I hope that makes sense. I know it's kind of funky. It's a funky
concept. If it
concept
doesn't make sense,
explain,
go watch it again.
Okay. So, but for those that study mediumship or parapsychology or psi, or
that's PSI.
Or the mysteries of how we plug into other realities, like multidimensional, you might think, are we living parallel lives?
They are constantly creating a brain that is more adaptable, more fluid, and more flexible, as well as compassionate. In other words, you are growing forests inside of your brain all of the time. That's all those dendrites that we're talking about. Those are being grown inside of your brain all of the time.
So basically, that part of your brain that grows makes you more compassionate. It's the same area of your brain that you access intuition. So as you work on your contemplative practices, it grows your ability to be a clearer channel. Listen to me, psychics out there and empaths out there and channelers out there. As you do that self-work of at least 12 minutes a day in a contemplative practice, it can be yoga. It can be on the treadmill doing your exercise and thinking about something specific, about something bigger than you. It doesn't matter. So what they have found with brain scans is that these dendrites that grow on the end of your cells that create new neural pathways in the brain and connect and balance all these parts of the brain.
Right.
If you've ever seen those sped up photographs of a forest growing, right? You see the dead forest floor, and then they speed it up and they give you what 100 years might look like.
Right.
Okay. And it's like in a minute, you're like, wow, that's 100 years of growth. Neuroscience, through the scans they've done of the brain of people that contemplate, have shown that that can happen in a matter of minutes in the human brain.
Wow.
And it can go in a matter of hours, really, in a matter of hours from just contemplating. And it's kind of crazy. And this is why I think, we say time and time again, you're not using as much of your brain as you could.
Right.
And there's simple practices that you can do to enhance your life, your brain, your psychic ability, your intuition. But it takes patience. It takes the willingness to sit. It takes the willingness to chart out a time in your day that you can sit and contemplate.
Yep. So practice maintenance and keeping that mind active in the contemplation of the mystery of anything. It doesn't even necessarily have to be God, but the mystery of anything, contemplating and being curious like a child of how this works, and communicating with people who are also curious and non-judgmental. Okay. All of those things are going to help you to build your brain, your forest. Make a forest. So only you can prevent forest dumbness.
You can grow. You will literally make your brain bigger because, okay, here's something. Sorry, guys, but this is a true fact. Women naturally have a bigger anterior cingulate cortex. It's a little bit big, yeah. Which is why women tap into empathy and intuition better.
I've got singular cortex
envy. So when they say men and women feel differently, they kind of do.
They literally do.
Because men's just a little bit. Doesn't mean that they don't have access. It's if you've ever.
It would take more training.
There's a slight difference in the male and female part of the brain that part of the brain. So, but that brings us to the shadow side.
Right. When you have groups that have a rigid belief and ideology, the us versus them, this is the only one true religion or belief or whatever it is, along with low-grade anger, you've got a whole recipe for disaster.
Well, I'm going to tell you why. Okay, because there's a real reason that people who are judgmental have smaller brains. They literally have smaller brain. This part of the brain is actually smaller. Groups that have a rigid ideology.
Thanks, brain.
Where it's like, this is the only way. And you even see it in the spiritual communities. Yeah. This is the only way that you can do it. This is the only way mediumship works. This is the only way.
This is the only method of protection. This is the only method of connection. This is the only method of whatever.
And this group is wrong. You see it, of course, we're familiar with it in religion, who are like, this religion is the only way to God, right? I don't know that many like ideological chefs. Most chefs I know like to share their recipes.
I know. That's a great example.
Okay.
If you have a bunch of chefs in a kitchen, you're going to have an amazing meal because they're all going to share different experiences. Those are the kinds of spiritual type people that you want in your circle.
It depends on what you're contemplating, right? So if you are contemplating the nature of the universe, the connectedness of everything, you're growing that part of your brain. If you're contemplating us versus them, you're actually causing damage to your brain. But even if, let's say you're a part of a fundamentalist type of religion where it's, I know we have the only religion and everyone else is wrong. You may be on the surface being nice and polite to everyone, but somewhere in the back, there's an us versus them mentality.
Which creates in the brain a low-grade anger.
So what neuroscientists have found is that there is this low-grade anger with people that have a rigid ideology in anything.
Right.
So those that harbor that anger left unprocessed and unreleased spills neurochemicals into the frontal lobe.
Negative ones.
That are damaging, like actually spills toxic neurochemicals into the frontal lobe of the brain.
And that part manages rational thought and behavior. And what you're doing is you're actually destroying it. So in other words, judgmental booty holes literally have smaller brains.
Right. So when you are fostering that as part of your ideology, your belief system, you're actually sort of damaging your ability to see other people rationally
and more clearly with love.
Clearly, that they get to have their own belief system and you get to have yours. So,
and that's why people that hold on to that rigidity and hold on to that low grade state of anger end up literally not really being able to see people clearly or see people with love and compassion because they're literally damaging that part of their brain with their thoughts.
So you want a bigger brain?
Yeah.
Be nice.
Be nice. Absolutely. So don't be the booty hole with a smaller brain.
If you want to have a bigger brain, be nice. Think about being nice. Think about how we're all connected and love and all that good stuff.
Right. So Shirley says, that's so funny. Shirley Marshall, thank you for joining us. She says, that's so funny. Just told my partner I'm starting to do chair yoga tomorrow as I recently had an operation. Thought it will help with my healing. Then your video popped up.
Yes, this boosts. I mean, this is a very small little snippet, but just by doing that, a simple contemplative, you're boosting the immune system. Number one,
right,
and creating new neural pathways and growing dendrites and doing forests in your brain. So
Helene says, same as some types of therapies like Botech for Bowen, you can only do treatments on a certain way. Okay, yeah, same thing. Fascial kinetics, another type of Bowen, reaches to listen to the body and follow the body's lead. Absolutely, that's probably even better than like you're talking about you can only do it certain ways, or you allow yourself to become more fluid.
Well, as in our healing work, our hands-on type of healing stuff we do with people, always follow the wisdom of the body, because you can learn your techniques in whatever your modality is. And there's a way you learn them, that there's a reason for it. So you can learn the technique, but then you trust the wisdom of the body and you follow that. Right.
You integrate the technique after you have learned the technique, then you become more fluid with it. And that's where the listening of the body helps you open up to the wisdom of the body. So Albert says, what does it generally mean to see synchronicities all the time pertaining to numbers? I released a music project called 33, and I see this number at least 7 to 8 times a day. What is the purpose in this? Okay,
fun, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So first off, here's what's happening in your brain, because we're on the brain today. So what's happening in your brain when you notice synchronicities? It's not about the synchronicities themselves, because they've been there. It's just your mind triggering you to pay attention on a conscious level. It's a little subliminal hit that says, pay attention to this, pay attention to this, pay attention to this. So if you're working on a project, for example, and you've got the number 33, your brain has constantly been programmed to see that number over and over and over again. So it's showing you that number out in the world. There may or may not be an actual purpose to it aside from, hey, pay attention to this. Just like when you get a new car, or when you're contemplating, here we go with contemplation, getting a new car, your mind is going to pay attention to more of those cars on the road. It's not that there are more of those cars on the road, you're just noticing them more frequently.
So like I like to say is that we have an experience at one point. And that experience is a trigger experience. Like that experience with the 3s may have been a trigger event that like sparked your brain off and dendrites started to form, like, wow, that's really cool synchronicities.
Yes.
But then that experience can create a belief.
Right.
And the belief could be that there's a connection. So you continue to seek for the connection, but then that idea might become rigid. So you're seeking the answer for it when it's just a fun kind of synchronicity. So
if you keep it fun and playful and fluid, then your brain is going to be more fluid with it. If you get too rigid with it, your brain is going to start being rigid with it. So a movie that kind of explains that concept is the number 23. So that movie kind of goes into when it goes all wacky and you get too caught up in seeing the synchronicities and making patterns where they're not really there. That movie would kind of help explain that a little bit more.
So right now our numbers are 111 on the top of our YouTube screen right now.
By the way.
Which can mean a lot of different things.
Anyway, Omar says, this is great information for my course that I'm doing in the Zen Academy Advanced Mediumship course, as I'm starting to do the work on seeing the guides, and I feel my brain rewiring as I do this.
It's kind of wild when you're like, wow, I can feel these tingles happening.
Yeah.
You're growing your brain. Hi.
You're literally feeling the forest in your brain.
So
go feel the forest.
Here's a bonus that I want to leave you with today. And I was going to say, ladies, listen up, but I think this applies for everybody. The neuroplasticity of your brain that you are sparking by including a contemplative meditative practice in your daily routine not only boosts your immune system, not only grows forests of dendrites in your brain very quickly, but it contributes to your youthfulness.
Yep.
So people that have practiced that look younger, feel younger, their brains are younger, and there's less rigidity. So
if you want to be your booty rocking everywhere, or Buddha rocking everywhere, then maintain your youth by contemplation.
It's cheaper than a facelift.
Yes, it is.
We'll be back to chop it up with our hashtag YouTube fam.
Faster than 2 shakes of a unicorn's tail. Go check out the link below for Zen Ed Academy.
If you liked this video,
hit that like button 5 times.
And if you have any insider stuff you want to know, even nerdy stuff, because we like talking about nerdy stuff, let us know in the comments.
We would love to hear your stories and tell you all of our personal stories. And for more live hangouts, behind the scenes secrets, and mind hacking pro tips,
be sure to subscribe
and click that bell wherever it is. I will figure out where it is to turn notifications on.
So you're the first to know
when we drop a new video
or go live.
And we know that time is a valuable and precious resource. And the fact that you guys have chosen to spend that with us, we absolutely appreciate that, getting nerdy inside of our brains with us. But most importantly, for yourselves, leveling up your skills, taking your life and your business to a completely new level. We absolutely honor and appreciate that even more. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you in the next video.